PING G series has always been awesome. Super forgiving. 440 is going to be no different. Let's talk about the internals of the 440 iron, and then we'll talk about some of the aesthetics on the outside. So for starters, 9% thinner face. That means weight reduction that then the engineers can put somewhere else. Ultimately, that means higher MOI and more forgiving. Thinner faces also mean faster ball speed, which for you, the golfer, means ball's gonna go farther. More distance, more forgiveness. It's hard to go wrong, but they've also put a lot of technology in a pretty small package. If I put these down, we see some offset in a longer blade length, but honestly, the top line is pretty thin for what it is. There'd be no concern really getting these through the rough if you need to, while still having a wide enough sole to provide some forgiveness on those heavy shots. Now the external, we do see an upgraded PureFlex badging in the back. This is much more than a piece of plastic. There's not only chrome in this, there's also polymers on the internals. Really just helps to reduce vibrations and ensure a really solid feel for what is a hollow-bodied iron. Now let's move into the G series line of drivers. We'll start off with our G440 LST. So let's talk about really what separates the 440 from the rest of the line. We're going to see the MOI coming in about 5,200, so it's a pretty high MOI, very forgiving driver for what is a low spin driver. We do have adjustability with the weight in the back, moving it from neutral to draw to fade. With that, we can take the CG from pretty much neutral in your draw and neutral setting all the way to 6 millimeters out on the toe. So if you are a chronic hooker of the golf ball, this driver would be worth testing. Put the weight all the way in the toe, you're gonna have a hard time turning that over to the left. Now, if you are a slicer of the golf ball, that's what the SFT model comes into play for. We've got a draw and a draw plus setting. Now with this, we see almost polar opposites. Moving the weight into the draw plus setting, we get 4 millimeters of CG movement into the heel. So really between just the LS and the SFT, they've pretty much covered everybody as far as curvature goes. Both of those drivers, we see a pretty low CG as far as the height goes. CG projects about 2 millimeters high on the LST. It's about 2 millimeters high also here on the SFT. So having excessive backspin really isn't a concern. MOI on this model, the SFT comes in at about 5,200 as well. And then our final model is going to be our G440 Max. And this is going to really be the driver that you can make work for almost any golfer. So for starters, we have MOI coming in at about 5,500, so very forgiving. Lots of weight in the rear of the club. That weight is also adjustable in the draw, neutral, or fade setting. With any of those, we see the CG about 3 millimeters high, so anytime you put a lot of weight in the back of the club, we'd expect the CG projection to raise, but again, 3 millimeters is still pretty neutral, honestly. Now let's talk about in the toe setting. The CG moves about 6 millimeters to the toe, so like the LST, you can make this pretty fade bias if that's what you need. Move it all the way into the draw setting. That's going to move the CG pretty much neutral, middle of the face. And if you just want a slight fade bias, put it neutral, we see about 3 millimeters into the toe. So you can pretty much make this driver work for anybody. Add some adjustability in the hosel like Ping has been doing for years. You can adjust both loft as well as line goal. Really get this thing dialed in for what you as the golfer needs. Now as far as what the line shares across the brand, we do see carbon wrap fly technology in all of them. So that's the carbon fiber weight savings that then they can take that weight, put somewhere else. We haven't really seen that across the entire line in previous generations. They've also introduced a new internal feature, what they're calling their free hosel design. And basically what that means is normally this adapter goes into a solid tube of titanium, which then obviously has some weight. By basically skeletonizing that, removing material from the adapter, the internal adapter piece, that allows them to take that weight and put it somewhere else. And really from an engineering point of view, saving grams here and there is really huge when it comes to designing a driver. So you really have an awesome line both in the irons as well as the metals. You'll be able to find something for everybody. But to figure out which driver really is for you, check out golftec.com and go into your local GolfTec today.